here with Jose Bello, or in Spanish would be Bello. Jose is one of my neighbors. His son is in my daughter's kindergarten class, or was in her kindergarten class, and now going into first grade because they're all getting so old.
Together.
And I'm doing some of these things now where we just want to introduce or get to know our neighbors a little bit more. And Jose's a really interesting guy. He's a fun guy to talk to. We have a lot in common, and even though we're from slightly different generations, but I thought this would be a good time for us to get together and have a chat. And Jose, would you mind just introducing yourself? Tell the people at Generation Bridge who you are, what you do, and what makes you you.
So my name is Jose Bello. Initially I'm from Dominican Republic. I came into the United States when I was 14 years old, and I went into Queens to live in Queens, New York, and I grew up basically since 14 until I met my now wife. And we moved to Long Island. I moved to New Rochelle, and then I ended up in Connecticut, this beautiful state. So my background, I'm Dominican. I love really good food. I love to cook. I love sports, especially baseball. My family is very, I would say, and religious. I would say because we always used to go to church since I was little. It was mandatory that we will go to church every Sunday. And what I do now, I'm a wine and spirit consultant. So I got the booze.
Well, and you're doing it actually for a Jewish company, right?
Yeah. So funny story. I have my personality has always been very outgoing, very talkative. So I feel that I have been blessed from God with this personality, and it's a grace that God has given me. God has given all of us many graces, and we can decide to use it for good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I have the grace of convincing people. So I've been in sales my whole life practically. I came when I was 14, and I have always been a hardworking person thanks to my dad, because my dad has always shown me how to be responsible, how to be a man of your word, and how to always be your word. It has not always been the case, obviously. I have made many mistakes in my life, but thank God I have more wisdom now, and I've learned from my mistakes. So going back to the work part, and so with my personality, I came when I was 14. I was working in Dominican Republic before I came here. So before I was 14, I used to work in a textile industry, and my godfather, they had a big industry of making pants and shirts and different type of things with textile, different
The fabrics.
fabrics. So like they were not abusing me
No, no.
at work, but I wanted to work actually. I went to him and I said, "Give me the opportunity to do this." So I was there like carrying pants up and down. I was cutting the different extra fabric that you needed to clean up from the pants and stuff. And it was a stepping stone for me as a young man, 13. I feel like people don't do that anymore. Like
Hmm.
I don't think the younger generation right now is thinking about of working at all.
Or that
It,
kind of working at least.
yeah, especially like even more adult people are not practically thinking of that. A lot of kids now are thinking of being in in the like getting pleasure rather, right?
Hmm.
Having their way, not having to be responsible or having a responsibility. So I have always had that since I was younger. So when I came here, I started working in a supermarket, which is from my family supermarket too. I was packing bags, I was doing deliveries. I just wanted to make money. I have always helped my family. Like when I was making money, I would give a certain percentage in my house. So then from there, I started working in a church after school,
Mm.
like a kind of like daycare for after school children. We will help them do their homework, and then at the same place we started doing like a dance. It was like a dance club type of thing. Like we would learn how to dance different because I have always been a dancer, by the way. So
He is pretty smooth.
I have always been a dancer. I dance many things like merengue, bachata, salsa, and I used to teach a lot. But throughout my growing up, being in the church and having people teaching us how to do a specific choreography about dancing, it was a nice experience, and it led me to teaching people. After that, I like to teach. When I know something and I can teach it to somebody, it's my pleasure. After that, I started working for Cell right there. I was 16, 17, getting out of high school, going into college, and I got a job in a company that used to sell Portland spring water, and they used to do resets in the supermarkets, which I had some idea about supermarkets because I was previously working in a supermarket and packing bags and doing deliveries for my family. From there, I I went to I was like 18, 19, and I went into another company of sales because of the way I am, and I like to talk and I like to give explanations. And I went into a company that used to sell organic juice, type of juice, kind of like Snapple, but
Hmm.
better. And also we had some energy drinks, like competition for Red Bull, stuff like that. So we were growing in that company. Funny fact, I was 19, and that company, they buy the routes. Like if you want to be part of the company, you buy a certain route and you develop it. And I was helping with the developing process. And one day we are sitting in the conference room, and the CEO of the company tells me to stand up. He's like, "Oh, Bello, stand up," and I'm like, "Oh, that's it. I'm getting fired." And he goes to everybody there, mostly people that are 30, 40, like way older than me. I was the youngest guy there. He goes to them, "Oh, this is your new manager," and I was 19,
Wow.
and I was like,
And you were
"Wow,
in school at the time, or
yeah."
wow?
So I was kind of in and out of school because I was
Yep.
working
Yeah.
to mostly to help my parents. I used to pay some part of the rent in my house. Like I said, I used to try to help all the time. I always had that mentality. So then they made me the manager of the company together with one of my uncles. And some people didn't like it because I was young, and they were like, "Oh, what are he gonna do?" And then I went out with those people to the market, and they saw what I did, and they were like, "Oh, I want to go out with Jose every day."
Mm.
And that was a nice experience for me because I been always working since I'm a young kid basically. So I believe like by 19, them doing that showed me that the hard work pays off. From there, the company actually went bankrupt because there's a way to go bankrupt. Either either the company's not doing good at all,
Yep.
or the company's doing very good and you're not ready for the demand.
Right.
And that's what happened to this company. We were going to the
Just couldn't
market.
actually give the product
Yeah,
out.
we
Yep.
were out of stock for so many items that people were asking for, and we ended up having to close the company because some investors back off for some financial
Hmm.
issues. Fortunately, that would have been a great company to stay.
Yeah, you would
And
have been right in the ground floor all the
yep.
way up.
So then from there, I started looking around to see where I was gonna work eventually, and I landed in the liquor industry when I was 21, right in time. So then I started working in the liquor industry since 21. I've been in two companies
Mm,
only since 21, and now I'm 34. So I was with a company that used to sell liquor and also beer, like Heineken, Tecate, Dos X, Presidente. Those are big beers.
right.
And then they also have like a liquor side of it, and that was where I was hired because they were developing the area of the liquor, and they were getting bigger brands, and they hired because they needed a bigger workforce. So I had the experience of sales, and they hired me. I didn't have a lot of experience of liquor and wine,
Mm.
but they hired me for the sales experience, and then from there on, I've been in the industry.
Well, and so you've obviously been working through sales and doing all that kind of stuff. I look at what you said there as being very honest about you've got a grace that is that sort of convincing thing. You're always just a lot of fun to talk with. I could see you, not just in terms of professionally selling, but you convince us of things too all the time. Because it's you've got great thoughts and great points of view and everything else. Now, here's part of it though. I love what you said about wisdom, the wisdom that you've got now. Um, if you were to impart some of that wisdom to your 18-year-old self who was, getting ready to start out and was doing all that stuff, is there anything you would say to your 18-year-old self that you might say, you know, don't be this, or, don't put all of this into one place, or, is there any advice you would give yourself back then? And you could say that there's none because you could say everything's perfect.
Yeah, you know what? There is a lot of advice that I can give myself, but I believe also that I was always surrounded by older people, and that allowed me to be more mature in the things that I did. And so one advice, right, as from many advices that I will give myself is not to waste time,
Mm.
not to procrastinate the things, because I am in a position that I am now, praise God, but I think that I could have been further in a financial aspect per se if I was not wasting so much time in things that were not important at that time when I was 18.
Is there an example of something that wasn't as important at that time? I mean,
Well,
I think the
yeah,
typical response would be girls and partying and that kind of stuff.
that is
But
one. That is one aspect. So yeah, I when I came from the Dominican Republic, I went into I would say middle school, high school, and then I started hanging out with the wrong crowd. I think I was a pretty good kid coming from Dominican Republic, and I started hanging out with the wrong people. I would say because they would lead me to maybe cutting school, you know,
hmm
drinking at that age, and smoking and doing all these things that are harmful, especially for a young adult. I think that I waste a lot of times because if I would focus on the things that I should, I would have been a lawyer now, convincing people.
hey, that's interesting. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yep.
I see it that way.
Although I,
Um,
I I look at what you do though, and we every bit like my wife is a salesperson, so sales is one of those things. A company doesn't exist without sales. A lawyer doesn't exist if he's not getting new clients or she's not getting new clients, right? So you've got to be able to actually get out there and convince people and tell people who you are. So I look at what you do as basically driving all business. But I could definitely see you being a pretty good lawyer.
yeah, so I think that if I would speak to my younger self too, I would say that even though like my family is very religious and we were always going to church, I had a moment during that age that I was rebelling,
Hmm.
towards my family, towards God, because I was not doing the things that I should do. Like what we're talking about, the truth. There's your truth and there's the truth.
Hmm.
So when you're young and you want to do whatever you want, you don't listen to your parents. You don't listen to God's words per se. You don't want to go to church. And I was always going to church. Then I had that moment that I didn't, and I think that I would never have stopped that because it would have put me in a better place, like emotionally, my wisdom as a person, and even in my work area, like it would have propelled me to a better place if I was being the man that God created me to be.
I think that's a struggle that a lot of us men have. Um, when we really do think about it, it when we put ourselves above God, right? When we put ourselves above um, His word or His law, it feels good sometimes, right? Like we get it. It feels good. Like that's sin can feel good, um, but we're never fully content. You can't find happiness necessarily, like, and I mean the deep kind of happiness, because you can be happy and everything's going around and it's all good, but the deep happiness where you're figuring out who you are as a person and what your purpose is and your meaning, it's hard to do that when you're the top and you're not submitting to someone else who's wiser, stronger, better at everything, right? And so when we accept God and we do that, we can realize very quickly just how imperfect we were at that time, right?
Yes, as young kids, and I had a moment, and I have seen people, even adults now, saying that, oh, the church or whatever, there's so many rules,
Mm.
and like they basically fighting against that, the truth, and they saying, oh, they just want to to make you do things or make.
Well, hold on. So we had a little bit of a hiccup. We had the camera went dead on us for a second. But we'll wrap this interview up pretty soon. But we were talking about the truth. We kind of went into a deeper place, and that wasn't necessarily where we were expecting to go. But deep is good, and I like deep. Um, and we were talking about if we could have known sort of that there was an objective truth before, if we didn't necessarily think that it was all subjective, and that if we believe that there is a truth, and we're not here to argue what's what or anything else like that, but it's very liberating to do that. At least from my perspective, it's very liberating to be able to submit and say, all right, I don't have to be the one that dictates truth. I don't have to be the one that comes up with all the answers. And I don't have to be the one that corrects all the world's ills and problems. But I can have faith that God, in His wisdom, is doing things according to His plan. And my job is to figure out how do I align with His plan in order to accomplish His will here on earth. And that's not an easy job, but I'll take that job versus trying to be the head boss any day. You know.
Yes, that's why when we try to have control, that's when we despair because we don't, and that's a fact. When we turn over the control to God, that's when we find hope because God has the ultimate truth. Another thing that I would say is don't to my younger self,
Mm,
don't listen to people that are not where you want to be.
interesting.
Sometimes we get sidetracked as young adults, and we technically don't have like a role model, and we look at people that are doing the wrong things and we pick them as role models. But if we go deep, deep, deep down, and what do you want? out of your life. Let's think about in the next 5 years and the next 10 years. We don't think about that when we're 18. We have all the time in the world,
Right.
and then you should find yourself a good role model, especially somebody that is where you want to be.
So who would be a good role model for you now?
My father, I think my father is a good role model because I am the man that I am today because of him, because of his wisdom. Also, my uncles, my godfather, family men that are out there working hard for their families are good role models because they're showing you how to do it properly, not perfectly,
Mm-hmm.
because we all have our imperfections in one way or another. My that wasn't perfect, but but one thing that I learned is that now I don't want to make those same mistakes. Taking the good things that he showed me
Mm-hmm.
and now seeing the bad things and turning it around to be a better dad for my family. So I think those are good people that you can see. Sometimes you don't have good models in your family, but most times you do.
Yeah, or at least they're accessible to you. They could be coaches.
Yeah.
Um, I had my stepfather was a role model that I didn't really accept until later on in life. My mom is a role model, um, but I also had coaches, and my high school soccer coach was my best friend's father. Um, and I would spend time with them on weekends because we'd go to a tournament or something like that, and he would house me at his house. So we'd have a sleepover and then go off to go play soccer, and then my mom would come pick me up or do whatever because she was a single mom for a long time, but then also um, lots of stuff was going on in our lives at points in our lives where she needed to have the weekends to herself a little bit more. But but yeah, so I would get in the car with those guys, go up, we'd play, come back. But they were Cape Verdean too, and so I would get to mix in with a different culture and everything else, and be one of the few, the white friends that are there. So, but it was fun though because you saw a different personality as well, right? What I love what you said though is that your own father and your uncles, and not necessarily that they're billionaires and they're the celebrity or anything else like that. It's real people doing the real stuff, and your relationship with them allows them to open up a lot more, right? Because you can see more of what makes them tick. Not everything's perfect. I think that's really, really interesting, right? We don't necessarily want to just put something up on a pedestal and follow that. So that might be that celebrity role model person that we think has got the perfect life, think has everything together, but we have no access to them, and so we don't know what they're dealing with, what suffering they're dealing with. But in our own lives, we have plenty of people that we can go to and really learn from. And then again, you're 34, I'm 46. We're going to continue learning the rest of our lives. But it's good to have those kind of people to look up to. And I also look back at my stepfather and your father, and you think through, they didn't have a lot of the things that we had either. So their life was tough. And some of those mistakes we can forgive them for because they're different people and they went through a different time. And when you can look back, I think that's another thing, maybe looking back, is forgive faster, right? Like if you could hold on to that piece of resentment a little bit less. As my father, I had an estranged relationship with him, but we came together um, soon before he died, actually, but we got closer before he died. And there's a lot of things that go into it. There's a lot of other stuff that goes into that, but forgiving quicker would have healed that faster.
Yes, because there's a saying that not forgiving is like drinking poison, expecting the other one to be killed.
Mm,
So you actually hurting yourself because God actually commanded us to forgive,
to
and
forgive.
He knew why. You see, He knows the truth, and we hear no holding into things, but those things are gonna make us free. Also, going back to the role model, I know you mentioned your mom, and that's a great point there because holy women and great women, they brought up great men.
Yes.
You know, I was thinking as you were speaking that yeah, I do have a lot of role models that are women in my life, and without them, I wouldn't be the man I am today. They show me how to treat a woman. You know,
Right.
there's a lot of women out there that wanna be in the movement, in the feminist movement, right? I'm a feminist. You know, I'm
Yeah.
for women.
Yeah. Me too.
So, but in the right perspective, you know, in the
Well,
perspective that
that we all work together.
yeah,
Not one over the other necessarily. It's just, there is sort of this, the Bible does give us some of this perspective, but as a husband and wife, it's not that one's dominant over the other. It's
it's the
that,
roles that we
but
have.
but you're supposed to love each other, and that doesn't allow for dominance like that. But it does allow for, all right, in certain things this might be my role, and in certain things this might be your role. I don't have the same energy with my kids that my wife has. My energy
Say
is
that again.
well, it's like I'm more of a disciplinarian. I'm more of like, you know, don't mess with me kind of thing, right? I'm a nice guy. I'm a nice father. Don't get me wrong, but that's sort of where I have a role in the house, and then she's there in that loving and compassionate,
Nurturing.
nurturing thing that I don't naturally have. I do it, but I don't naturally have that. That's not my first response in some cases. Um, and so, by the two of us working the way that we are wired to work, we work together very well. And we just hope and pray to God that our kids grow up okay, and that we do a decent job in getting them to their next phase. But we'll let it play out as it goes.
Yes,
Well, Jose, thank you very much for talking with me today. This is great.
it's my
We'll have to
pleasure.
kind of make, not the interview necessarily, but we'll have to make a coffee more frequent.
Yes.
We'll get that going. All right. Is there anything you would like to let people know in terms of if they are in the market, if they have a liquor store or have something like that where they can find you, or is there anything else that you would like to impart as like a parting wisdom?
Not technically for the liquor per se, because I'm more based in New York.
Mm.
I will be working in Connecticut a little bit in the future, trying to develop the market with some of our brands, and then you will have that information
Oh, nice.
firsthand.
All right.
But one thing that I can say um, to everybody is that God is good. You know, um, we should keep loving each other. You know, despite of what other people that might be not in your religion, not in your politics, not in your circle are doing. We should start loving more deeply and forgiving more faster, like you said, and we will find peace. You know, and we will see that everything around us will start to change when we change first.
Yeah, I agree. And when we put God up first, that's what changes us.
Amen.
It's amazing what happens when you allow Christ into your heart. Well, brother, thank you very much. I wish you a very good weekend,
Thank
and
you.
and of course a successful life.
Thank you.
And good luck with your newborn. Hopefully you'll get some sleep soon.
Amen.
Praise be. Oh,
Thank
man.
you.
Good to see you, brother. All right.
I'll take that coffee now.